here on Millions.co. My guest at this time, he just had a bout this past weekend. We're going to hear more about it. His name is Mason Lewis. Hello, sir.
How's it going, Hank?
It's going, man. So, where was it? And where was it?
So my fight this weekend was on FCP in Rochester, New York.
Okay. I've interviewed a lot of guys from that area recently over the last couple months.
Yep.
And what weight class did you fight at?
135 bantamweight.
Okay. Are you an amateur or pro?
Amateur.
Okay. What kind of... So, what was I going to say? How did you do in the fight, though?
So in the fight, I got a first round submission. I got a rear naked choke in 1 minute exactly.
Very cool. How long have you been competing?
So I've been wrestling for 18 years now, since I was 5. I've been doing MMA for just about 3 years. 3 years in, I think, September it'll be. So I've been around the block. I've had about nine amateur fights so far. So yeah, I'm what they call unk.
Unk.
Yeah, that's like a new term, like with like the new generation. So in like the amateur scene, I guess I'm like a unk.
I don't know. It sounds like an old man thing. You're 23 years old, right?
Yeah, but I've had like 9 amateur fights. Usually, like guys, go pro by then or whatnot. I don't know.
I was about to say, man, 23 ain't shit. I'm telling you. Let me tell you something. When I was 40, I'm 41 now. I fought when I was your age. Okay.
Yeah.
And it goes by quick, sir. And then you realize, wait a second, I was just a child at 23 years old.
Yeah.
How was your support system? You got a family or girlfriend or anything that supported you at the show?
Yeah, girlfriend. My family is my mom. She's my biggest supporter. I got my 2 sisters. My 2 sisters are also super big and supportive and big motivation for why I do what I do. My sisters for sure, yeah, and my mom. So those 3 women, my mom and my sisters, are definitely some of the biggest reasons for me. But
yeah. Absolutely. And you said you've been wrestling for 18 years since you were 5 years old, right?
yeah, yep. I've been wrestling since I was 5. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so the wrestling down in PA is pretty tough. It's historically known as like the best wrestling in the United States. If you want to get great wrestling, you wrestle in PA. There's no easy match down there. But same thing about New York. New York is full of freaking hammers and great wrestling here as well.
Yeah, well, one of the greatest, wrestlers to come out of there that was in the UFC was Josh Koscheck, and he's from that area, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he wrestled at Edinburgh.
Yeah, I don't know much about. I mean, or it's been so long since I've heard that name, but he's, Rochester, New York, and like Yonkers and Syracuse and all that stuff. They have a lot of great wrestlers, so to speak.
Yep.
I don't follow the wrestling community as much as I should. I don't, here on Millions, I don't get a whole lot of wrestlers. Most collegiate wrestlers, they just don't do interviews like that for some reason. So, or even high school wrestlers.
Wrestling's a sport. You don't get much out of it except just some personality traits, some nice ears, and just some. There's not much glory in wrestling. If you wanna do a sport and get fame, like you don't wrestle.
Yeah, but it's a good base to have for MMA. That's for sure.
Great base. That's for sure.
Well, did you watch Saturday Night Fight?
Hamzat versus DDP.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it, but I've heard about the 500 total strikes that Hamzat landed in the entire fight. That's insane. Only getting hit 49 times too. That's absolutely wild.
Yes, absolutely. I do watch parties on Millions.co, and
Okay.
And I watched the whole thing, and good night. I'd never seen anything like it. And, I'm not even worried about the strikes so much, but just how overwhelming he was with the wrestling. It was like, Duplessis didn't even have a
answer.
It's like it was like he never even had been in the ring with a wrestler before.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a different strength because you can be strong all you want, but if you don't understand body leverage, body mechanics, weight placement, like you're gonna have a very tough time against a wrestler. You can be as strong as you want, but
Right. I mean, it was amazing. In my opinion, the greatest wrestler of all time in the UFC was George St. Pierre. And that being said, George didn't have a wrestling background. He developed it.
yeah, yep. Which is brilliant because usually wrestling is I personally believe wrestling is the hardest base to learn
Right.
for MMA.
Yeah.
But and considering he didn't even have a background in it and he learned it just like that is beyond me.
Yeah. And that's a matter of opinion too, but I can kind of agree with you about that as far as the wrestling, because jiu-jitsu is really technical and, crafty as well, but so is wrestling. You're trying to outsmart the guy who's doing the same thing to you as you are to him. So there is some craft in there as well.
Well, I guess I should rephrase that. I guess I think jujitsu is harder to learn, but I think wrestling is harder to be good at. If that
Okay, I
makes
can see
any
definitely,
sense. If that
definitely.
makes Yeah.
No, I get it. I get it. I mean, it's like playing the guitar. I mean, it's easier to learn how to play. It's harder to learn jazz, so to speak, but
Yeah.
it's easier to play rock. So I don't know. I
Right.
don't know. I don't know if that's the right analogy, but
The analogy was there.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, I get it. And my thing too is that you defeated your opponent with a rear naked choke, so there is some malice to what you're saying, especially considering the fact that you have a wrestling background.
Yeah. Um, you know, I've I guess wrestlers like it's tough because you can go into jujitsu as a wrestler and get a predominantly decent at the main chokes, arm triangle, rear naked choke.
Yeah.
Your triangles, your arm bars are going to be a little bit more difficult as a wrestler to get great at as regards to a rear naked choke or an arm triangle or
Mm-hmm.
Kimura. But just considering those are off the guard instead of a back take or a mount. But yeah.
Right. Right. I mean, most wrestlers are not comfortable being on their back either, but you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, I've had so much fun with playing out of my guard, with my triangles, my arm bars, my omoplatas, even my gogoplatas. Like, just learning the jujitsu game has been super cool. It's a never ending puzzle, and it's so fun. It is so fun.
I
Same thing
know
with
it.
striking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I never could understand, why people don't respect the ground game as much. At least the fans, that just goes to show you about, cage, these, newer generation of MMA fans. They don't respect the ground game as much. But I mean, they were on their feet a lot for the Hosmot fight. So
Which is nice to see. I understand it. As like a fan, I don't even like watching wrestling, and I've wrestled for 18 years, and I hate watching wrestling. I hate watching wrestling matches. That's why I try to like with my fighting style. It's Greco-Roman, so I use a lot of throws in my fights.
Mhm.
I like to pick guys up, throw them over my head, and slam them.
Yeah,
That's kind of like my style. I like to wow the crowd a little bit with
yeah,
those, just because I know I'm a wrestler. That can come across as a boring style to watch. So if I can slam a guy on their head, and get a few cheers or a few wows, then I'm going to do that. But yeah,
yeah. I remember watching this guy named Mike Van Arsdale. You were probably a little too young to remember him, but
yeah, don't.
no, but he fought Randy Couture. All right, when Randy Couture lost the belt to Chuck Liddell in 2005, then Randy had a one fight before he fought Chuck again, and it was against Mike Van Arsdale. But Mike Van Arsdale had the kind of the style that you're talking about with the
Yeah,
Greco-Roman wrestling. So
there's
what do you?
different.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff, man. So tell me about your opponent that you fought. How did that? What was his deal?
So Jonathan Shady Lopez, he a very game opponent. He was 3-1. I think he should have been 4-1. He had like a weird no contest fight. So he had a great record. He was good on his feet. I know he was a southpaw, which I'd never fought before. He I think he let the emotions get to him a little bit. I think he got in his own head, just a tad. I kind of read his body language from the weigh-ins all the way to when
Hmm.
we were backstage. You know, because we were in the same locker room. There's just a curtain, and I could kind of see like how he was warming up.
Hmm.
His actions while he was at the event. You know, just from seeing him, it looked like he stressed himself out a little bit too much. It looked like he I wouldn't say cocky because I think he was very. I think he was trying to embed that confidence in him, like verbally, and maybe with the energy. Very upbeat at some points, but then some points he would be downbeat, and I could just read it. I could read the language that it wasn't all there, and like I feel like he knew he kind of had his hands full. I feel like there were some thoughts in his head that he was kind of second guessing, like, man, like if this guy gets to my legs or if this guy gets to my body, I'm screwed. Um, so I just really wanted to take advantage of that and keep my composure.
That's good. I mean, that's good. It looks like you read him pretty well, and you say he was, it looked like he wasn't all there, but at the same time was coming in kind of cocky. So
Distinctly, so they took a video of our weigh-ins and um, he didn't wear a shirt, and which is funny because somebody else actually pointed this out to me after I had like already seen the video and saw his body language. I could see him breathing, and it was a nervous breathing pattern. And I could tell that he was shaking, and I could tell that he was very reluctant. And he was trying to hide it with the shades and the style and the swagger, which he has some swagger to him. I'll give him that. He's got some confident swagger, which is cool. But I could tell that like he knew he had his hands full. But and that's like in no way I'm not discrediting him one bit. He'll learn. The only thing he'll do from this is learn and get better. Like it's amateur fighting. Like who the heck cares? You know, no one's gonna remember this fight in 5 years when he's a pro and probably freaking 6-0 on his way somewhere nice. You know, and I'm in the same boat. So, but
very
that's
cool.
just what I saw.
No, hey, that's a great attitude. I like that. It's that's a very competitive. That's a very classy competitive attitude, so to speak.
Yeah, that's how I like to roll.
No, I dig it, man. So yeah, I know that one thing about you guys up in that area, stuff like that. You're either very intelligent with the way you approach the sport, or you're very dumb. I've
Yeah.
heard some guys shoot off their mouth on my show before, and have gotten me in trouble. You might know one of them, but yeah, no. I had this. There was this one kid named Dylan Conti. Do you know who that is?
No.
Okay, well, I was like, man, his mouth almost got me in trouble. I was like, good. No, I was like, it was so funny, man. Like, I love that guy. For the record, I was just like, man, don't be getting me in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's crazy because it's such a physical sport, but I feel like it's so much more of a mental sport than it is a physical sport. Our bodies do the work in the cage, but I feel like our mind really does the work outside of the cage. You know, your body takes over, but your mind really controls in the camps, and
Yeah,
so
I've been covering this sport for nearly 20 years, and I've been watching it for 26 years. So I, I'm glad you keep using the word sport, because when I first started watching it, it was a spectacle.
yeah, people look at this thing as like
Human cockfighting.
yeah, yeah, that's literally like word for word what I've heard it. So
Which don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem at the time. I didn't have a problem with it. It's just that if things evolve, how much can a spectacle really, how much can a spectacle really grow unless you're doing like a magic show?
yeah, I agree with that. I think that this sport has evolved tenfold since it's been around since what 1990. I think 1993, right?
That sounds about right. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's when they first put on their first
yeah,
MMA fight. But if you, people on the outside that don't watch the sport look at it as human cockfighting, but people on the inside that watch the sport, I've had people come this weekend that have never seen a fight before, and they said, "Man, like I thought we were just going to see, people just throwing fists wild." Which I mean, you do see that with the people first starting out, the
Right.
new up and comers, but you see some of these fights like Mitch White and like Ty Coles, and those guys are some of the most technical, like they're just technicians, and they're it's truly an art, it's beautiful to watch them guys fight.
100%. I can't imagine, I can't imagine it being any differently now. If it didn't grow like this, then like you said, you probably would just, I mean, it would be more of a trend and there wouldn't be a whole lot of business behind it.
Correct. I think there's so much. I mean, it's not fun to watch, unless there's true art, true competitiveness,
Yeah.
um, and I think the skill of fighting now is so much better than the skill of fighting 20 years ago.
100%. I mean, I'll back you up on that. And I was there. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I was there even 15 years ago. I was at UFC. I mean, I've been watching UFC since 1999. And I remember in 09, I went and watched UFC 107 with Diego Sanchez versus BJ Penn. And the sport has grown since then.
Yep.
So,
And I notice a lot of, so especially now, which is beautiful for us, it really for us amateur fighters, because we can find professional level fights on the amateur scene,
mm-hmm.
whereas back then you were amateur fighters, amateur skill wise, but having to go pro just to find fights. And it's nice that we get to develop our game and really evolve as fighters, in the amateur scene, and it only is going to make the sport better. So it's beautiful.
When I competed, I didn't want to go pro. I did not. There was I was trained under Jeff Mullen. I don't know if you know who that is or not, but he is the
No.
Nevada. He is the senior athlete, or I think he's like the senior athletic director in Nevada. Like he's the man,
Yeah.
and he's from my city, and it's just he's like the man now as far as athletic directors goes.
Yeah.
And even then, those guys were limited on training us by the time period that we were in 20 years ago. I
Right,
mean,
right, right.
you had great boxers, you had great kickboxers. Jiu-jitsu had its place, but it wasn't like a whole lot of high level skilled Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighters back then. You had some great good ones, but I didn't know any black belts back then. So
No, and what you also didn't have is guys that could put everything together. I think that's the biggest difference in fighting 20 years ago to now. You had guys that were just boxers, guys that were just wrestlers, guys that were
yeah,
just Brazilian Jiu Jitsu specialists. And now you have guys that are wrestlers who can strike like legit kickboxers that also have the Jiu Jitsu of Brazilians,
right. And there's not, and it was starting to develop. I mean, somebody like Rich Franklin, Rich Franklin he was probably the biggest complete mixed martial artist back then, I would say, at least in my opinion, he was. There's probably others off the top of my head that I could think of. But one thing that made Rich special was that he was not only that, but then you also looked at it when he fought Anderson Silva the first time. Anderson Silva, knocked out the champ with ease because he didn't know how to defend himself in the clinch. Rich
Yeah.
Franklin did not know how to defend himself in the clinch. It was like, and they said, and Anderson Silva was as strong as Tim Sylvia back then. So
That's incredible. Like and nowadays everybody's so good at everything that you have to prepare yourself in every aspect of the martial arts in order to succeed.
absolutely, absolutely. So before I let you go, is there anything you want to say to the camera? Do you have any sponsors? Do you anybody you want to give a shout out to or anything like that?
I want to give a shout out to my mom because she's cool as heck. Sorry, I almost.
I don't give a fuck if you say fuck.
Yeah, she's cool as fuck. She's the goat. But also I got a cool brand that I work with, TMH, Made for Champions. I really like their gear. So tmhmma.com if you guys want some cool swag. So
Got it. That's all right, man. Well, thank you for joining me, Mason, and it's been fun.
Yes, sir.
And hey, look, if you ever want to do this again, let me know. I'm
Yep,
here.
you got it, Hank.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching the Hank Russell Invitation. You know, you could have been doing anything else, but you decided to join us here this evening. I'm always glad that you did. Never, I'll
Appreciate it.
never, I'll never turn you down. Until next time, y'all have a good afternoon.